beautiful morning. Hey everyone, my name is Colin Rayner from 902 Outdoors, and I am just getting wrapped up from a morning duck hunt. While I'm getting things cleaned up here, you guys are going to be watching a very special hunt that I done this year in September with my dad up in Newfoundland. Now, when I say a hunt, it's not technically a hunt per se, as we didn't get drawn for any tags this year, but nonetheless, whether we're hunting with a gun or a camera, it really is all the same to us. We do it every year. We go up in the mountains, we hike for miles and miles and miles, we enjoy the scenery, the wildlife, and probably most of all the fact that there's no cell service. But anyways, I'm going to get things cleaned up here. I really hope you guys like the video. There's some really cool stuff in there. There's up close encounters, there's some wild ATV rides, there's great scenery, there's even a bit of golf. There's a little bit of everything in this video. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy. I'm going to get cleaned up and go home.
Internal combustion.
Are you warm?
As we speak, so if you do try to get me anytime in the next week and you don't get me,
This is not the favorite part of the day, I can tell you that. 30 kilometers of this old, rough woods road hauling a trailer with 2 bikes in the back gets slow and painful. The plan for today was not very much actually. After a long day of travel and not much sleep, our goal was just to get to the first look off of the bikes and basically sit there for the morning and spy and just see what we could see. As usual, it didn't take very long.
Nice little bull there. Not huge, but
the one that's coming toward me is nice. Nicer.
If you're wondering why the video is so blurry, it's because we spotted him from 3 miles away. And that's pretty typical when you're scanning from ridge to ridge. But the plan is to wait for him to lie down, and once he lies down, he should be there for the afternoon. So you can pick a landmark and just go find him.
just a ways away.
So off we went. Now, even though this moose was about 5 kilometers away, the way that we had to go to get to him was about a 14-kilometer run. Now, we were able to cover about 8 of these on the ATVs, but I'm not sure if it saves you any more energy when you're beating around these old winter trails put in by the logging companies. They are brutal. Being built in the wintertime on top of the snow, they don't remove the sticks and stumps and boulders that are there. It's just nasty. And going up this ridge is steep. The camera angle never does it justice, but most of the time you're just trying as best you can to keep your front tires in the ground from going back over. Yeah, so this is the reason why all of our bikes are absolutely destroyed. There is just no forgiveness. This is a 2-hour ATV ride of nothing but boulders and sticks and stumps and bogs. There's no such thing as flat ground. It's as rough a terrain as you can imagine. It's brutal. Again, the camera angle just doesn't do this justice at all. This spot here was just too steep to get in over. The bike wanted to come over backwards and there was nothing he could do, so he had to get off and throw a couple boulders in certain strategic points to flatten out the ground enough that he could just crawl up over without having the bike flip on top of him. I got the bright idea that I was going to try to take on this big bank, driving with one hand and filming with the other. And I got about 3/4 up, but after that, it didn't turn out so well.
Not good.
So the reason why Dad is saying it's not good, and the reason why I'm taking so long rather than just backing up and going ahead, is because, again, the camera angles don't do it justice, but the hill below me is so steep that your brakes won't hold you. So if I back up over that little stump that I'm hooked on and the bike starts going down the hill, I have no control.
It's not fun to go down there, son. Not backwards, it ain't.
Yeah, I am well aware that wouldn't be fun, and I really don't need any help, so you just keep the camera rolling and I'll be fine. I'll get out of here all by myself. Once we get off the bikes, we still had a couple kilometers left to walk, but at least once you're up on the ridge, it's pretty good going. Well, for the most part. We somehow managed to stay dry, and as soon as we got across this pond, we were only about 100 yards from where we figured the moose was, and sure enough, boy was he having a good snooze. When I looked across the barrens and saw him at first, I actually thought it was a dead moose there. I really couldn't believe my eyes. I've never seen a moose laying down so fast asleep before. You know, usually they have their head up in the air and their eyes are closed, but I've never seen one just laying flat like this. All of a sudden he woke right up, and we weren't sure why because we hadn't made a sound, but obviously he had heard something that we didn't, and we were trying to figure it out for quite some time, and then we finally realized. 2 cows had started working their way over toward this bull, and he had heard them somehow. Now the problem is they were downwind of us and working their way up onto this little open barren that we were on. We had no cover, and they were for sure going to get our scent, or so we thought. With no cover, we just stayed dead still, and I have no idea how they didn't get our scent, but they didn't, and eventually the two of them worked their way down into the same drogue that the bull was laid down in. It's funny how quick you can wake up when you got 2 ladies coming right to you. In the meantime, another cow had worked her way from another direction and was coming to the bull and decided she was going to walk right across the pond. Well, now this guy couldn't decide which cow he wanted to go to first. He was looking at the cow on the left and then at the cow on the right, and he really couldn't make up his mind. But I figure that's a good problem to have. So he started walking towards one cow, and I don't know if he got close to her and figured she wasn't as good looking up close as she looked far away, but he turned around and started walking back toward the other cow. I really admire the decision that he made. He just decided that it was too tough of a choice and he was just going to lay right back down. If they wanted him, they could come get him. But eventually the suspense got a hold of him. He couldn't wait no longer. You can see here his tongue is hanging out. He is wanting that cow.
Ball now or whatever. She's gone. You better ball now or never.
After a good telling off, he figured it was best to follow her around. I can't say I blame him. After quite a while of watching these moose, we decided we were going to try to have some fun with this bull, and as you can hear, we started giving him a few grunt calls. And of course, he didn't take too kindly to that. He went in the woods right away and started hammering on the trees to make sure that we knew that those cows were his. In the meantime, the other cow over to our left decided it was a good idea to just pee in everybody's watering hole and walk away like nothing ever happened. And Mr. Bull decided he was going to start licking his lips out and see if he could get some loving off this cow, and that didn't go so well for him. Just watch. Yep, another big telling off. I guess today just wasn't his day. It was getting time for us to leave, so we grunted to him a few more times, tried to challenge him to a fight, but he really wasn't having none of it. He had his cows with him, and they were running off in another direction, and he just wasn't concerned about us at all. So we let them be and began our journey back out. Actually, no, we didn't. We sat right in that same spot and decided it was time for lunch.
Lunchtime, huh? Lunchtime. Sandwich too.
That's all I came for anyway.
We got our new glory spout.
Not bad setup.
It's a dandy setup.
Seen it before.
before. I don't know why I didn't have them. Single goose going there. I see a single goose going over there.
Close to 30 moose a day.
Yep.
15 or 20 back there.
Oh yeah, we've seen. Oh yes, more than 25. Some great grub too.
Screenshot her. Good then.
Yep.
So we got our lunch into us and headed back to the bike. Now on the way back there's a little hilltop that me and my dad stop on every year when we're up on this ridge, and the main reason is to spy, because the visibility is simply amazing from there. But there's a little bit of a deeper reason for that as well. A few years back my grandfather was with us and he shot the biggest bull of his life just over the back of this ridge. On the way out we all lined up and took a photo there. And now every year when my dad and I go back, we stop on this ridge, we spy a little bit. We take a photo just like this, and we remember my grandfather as he's no longer with us anymore, and we just wish that he was there with us one more time.
Yeah, I wish the old man was here for that picture now.
What's that?
So I wish the old man was here for that picture.
Yeah, the last one we took of him in blue was pretty nice, eh? This is the day we've been waiting for all year. We were headed into Doctor's Gulch to find a monster. The weather was good, we had just got a full night's rest, we were in plenty early, everything was going great, until we got to the top of the ridge. Pretty of a day as it looks, that bank of fog you see behind me completely covered us within 15 minutes of taking this video. There was nothing we could do. We couldn't see, we couldn't go anywhere. So we just decided to go play golf. Now it's a 2-hour drive down to the golf course, but it's a gorgeous drive down through Grossmorn Park. As you can see here, the views are just unending for the whole way down. And plus, we had to drive down anyway because that night my brother-in-law was flying in to meet us. So either way, we had to make this drive, and it was just as well to make it in daylight where we could see the sights, get there a bit early, play around the golf, have some supper, pick them up, and be ready for day 3. I don't think Caleb knew what he was getting into this day. I had even texted someone the day before and said, we're going to give this guy a day that he'll never forget. But little did we know heading in this woods road that today would be a day that none of us would ever forget. Why Caleb was having such a hard time getting up over here. I mean, it's a nice, perfectly flat, smooth trail. There shouldn't be no concerns, really. Got a nice bike there with a perfectly good, comfortable seat and good power steering. I'm not really sure what the problem was. Again, it's so annoying that the camera angle doesn't show how steep this is, but that really was the problem. We were coming up a mountainside, trying to get to the top of the ridge, and as you can see right here, the bike is a lot of times almost coming over backwards. These big boulders will just take you and throw you over to the side, put you on top of a stump or a tree, and it's just hard to handle. And as for that big comfy seat I was talking about, well, because Caleb was new, we gave him the nicest bike with the biggest comfortable seat and all the bells and whistles, and he really should have had no problem getting up over this ridge like he did, but anyway, maybe next time he'll be a little better. So the thought process here is that we're going to save ourselves about 2 kilometers of walking by bringing the bikes up the ridge to the base of the hill. But I'm not really sure if it saves us any energy at all.
Are you warm?
I honestly think it's more of a workout to bring a bike up here than it is to just walk. And right now, I think Caleb would agree with me. Well, Caleb, buddy, I'm sorry to tell you, but the day hasn't even started yet. We can only bring the bikes up so far before we gotta start walking up over the rest of the way to get to the top where we spy from. And to those of you that haven't been to Newfoundland before, all of these ridges, just before you get to the top, they have these terrible, terrible areas of what they call tuckamore. And this tuckamore is so thick, it's just brutal to walk up through. Once you're through it and up on the tundra, it's just open and clear, but to get up on top of these banks, if you can't find a game trail to get up through, it can be brutal. Now luckily in this spot, we do have a game trail that we come up somewhat. It's not a very good one, but it's a little bit better than just beating through the raw tuckamore. But anyway, made her to the top. Once you get up on top of the ridge, you're able to see this entire valley. It's a horseshoe shape, and from side to side, it's about 4 kilometers across from ridgetop to ridgetop, and the depth of it is about 6 miles deep. So there's a lot of area to look at, and very, very rare have we ever come up here and not spotted a trophy bull from this very rock I'm standing on right now. Now, I'm going to try to explain the layout of the land here just a little bit so you can understand what's about to happen next. Basically, we're on top of this ridge right here and we're spying out across the valley. Now, if you'll notice over on the left side of your screen, there's a little bog there. It's a little valley, and there's usually moose in it. So, Caleb and I decided that we were going to make the walk over to check it out. Now, it doesn't look far, but as you can see here, it is a half a kilometer away. So it's a little bit of a walk just to go check it, but I can't let myself pass it up. We've seen some big moose there in the past, so off we went. And what a great choice that turned out to be. Not down in the bog, but just across the bog on the other ridge was this huge bull. Now, my apologies for this video being so shaky, but as you could see before I zoomed in, this moose was still over half a kilometer away. So I was zoomed in pretty tight, and I didn't quite have time at this moment to set up the tripod, so a little bit hard to steady a camera at that distance away. But anyway, just bear with me. So I had a little bit of a problem here. Dad was still back spying on the other rock a half a kilometer away, and with no cell service, there was no way I could let him know that I seen a nice bull. Of course, I wanted the whole group to be together, but the only way to let Dad know would be to literally walk back over to him. Now, the walk isn't the issue. It's the time it takes to walk a half a kilometer over and back. By the time we'd done that, this moose might not even be there. He could be long gone and we'd never see him again. I really wanted the whole group to be together, but I really wanted Caleb to see this bull up close, so sorry, Dad, but you've probably seen enough moose in your lifetime. I decided that I'd try to just call him across the valley myself and see how close Caleb and I could get to him. The problem I had, and I knew it right from the get-go, is that this was the first day in my lifetime I had ever seen such a calm day on the ridge. When I say zero wind, I mean zero wind. I have never seen it like this in my life. When you have such a calm day like this, you get swirling in the air, and that swirling is so unpredictable. One breath is right in your face, the other one's right behind you, another one's on your side. It's just no way to tell where it's going to be. Now, I knew this would be no trouble to get this bull down within 50-60 yards for a good viewing and a good picture, but I was a little greedy. I wanted to get him out on that bog and challenge him to a fight. Now, to get him within 8 or 10 yards in the wide open like that was definitely going to be a challenge today with no wind to work with. Normally, you just stay on the downwind side of him, and as long as he can't smell you, then it should be all good. But on a day like today, all you can hope is that a gust of wind doesn't circle around behind you and give him your scent. It didn't take long. He started coming on the tear off that ridge heading down towards the bog, just like we planned. So Caleb and I packed her up, and we headed down to the bog as well. Now the plan right from the beginning was to start calling this bull from up on the ridge. And once he started coming down to the bog, we would start coming down as well. And this is what we're doing right here. We're slowly walking down to the bog, grunting as we go. And we're kind of making it seem like this other bull is not really just sitting in one place, but he's on the tear too. And we're going to meet in the middle and settle this thing. I knew I could get down to this bog before the bull got there, and that would give me some time to get set up. But the really cool part about a calm day like today was that you could hear every move he made. The whole time we were sneaking down here, getting set up, getting things ready, finding cover, you could hear him coming. You could hear him grunting and scraping trees and getting closer and closer and closer. I heard him that time. He was getting close. So I got Caleb in the cover here with the camera, and it was about to go down. For the last 2 hours, I've been telling this guy that I wanted to fight him, and now here he is. So I guess it's time I put my money where my mouth is. The only problem is what happened next absolutely sickens me. Remember that swirling wind I was talking about? Well, the whole time we were doing this, I could feel it on my face coming out the valley from him to me, which was perfect. As soon as I stepped out around the branch to do the antler display, I felt the gust of wind on the back of my head going right towards him, and he bolted. Well, now not only had we wasted 2 hours of the day, but now we had to go all the way back and tell Dad that the reason why we were gone so long is because we completely screwed up on a big bull moose. Then, of course, we get to hear all the things that he would have done differently. You should have done this, you should have done that. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, we did get up close and personal with this ptarmigan, if that's any consolation. There is one thing we knew, though. That moose didn't leave that small valley. First of all, he couldn't get up over any ridge without us seeing him going. But second of all, we had called to him a couple more times after he left, and he had actually scraped back to us, and we thought he was coming in again. But he never did show his face. I think he was a little gun shy from the first experience. But at least we knew he was still there. So we snuck out of there quietly and we went back across the ridge to see what Dad had saw. And Dad had actually saw 3 or 4 nice bulls out across the valley. All were worth going for a walk to take a look at. But we actually made a decision to go back and try for this same bull over again to see if we could get close to him. Why walk 6 miles across the valley when you got one right in your backyard? Coming back across the ridge, we were greeted by a small caribou. Anyways, we weren't going to take too much time for him. We were on the bigger and better things. That's a pretty nice background, though, I must say. When we got across the ridge, we spotted the bull right back up in the same spot where we had first called him from. So this time we decided we were going to walk down across the bog and try to go up to where he was and just see how close we could get. A little later in the day now, we were actually getting some wind to work with, which was nice. But unlike earlier in the morning, he had the phone on airplane mode. He was not answering calls anymore. So that made it a little more difficult. We couldn't get him to come to us. He was just going to stay up on that bank. And the only option we had to get to see him was to get as close as we could to him. Eventually we snuck our way in within sight, but it was just so thick in there. The only thing that was visible was his ears and plates, and he would not move. There was no calling, no scraping, nothing that would make him move out of there. He was quite comfortable with his cow, and he had heard that song and dance before, so anyway, the only thing we could do was try to stand up higher and get what pictures we could of him. He really was a gorgeous bull. I sure wish I could have seen him in the open out in the bog that morning. But things just didn't work out. And right now he wasn't interested in moving, so we decided to leave him alone. We snuck out and made a new plan for the day. About 1 kilometer out the ridge, there's another lookout that we use to spy from. Now, you're looking down into the same valley, but from a different angle. It opens up a lot of drokes and low spots that you can't see from the first look off. We decided we'd head out there to see what we could see. One of the coolest features about this place is the game trails. As you can see here, it's just a highway of trails all over the place that are basically made from the migration of caribou over this ridge. Anytime you start to get into a lower or thicker spot, There's always going to be a game trail to go through there. If you can't find one, you're not looking hard enough, but there will be one, it's guaranteed. What a beautiful place this is. Kind of too bad that little bank of clouds is blocking the ridge across there, but it's still gorgeous. At this point, Caleb was oversleeping by a rock, and I'm not sure why I didn't get a video of that, but I guess I missed the opportunity. And Dad was here filming his guts, so with Caleb sleeping and Dad more worried about eating, somebody had to do the work, so I took off and went and sat down by the rock and started to spy across the valley. I couldn't believe my eyes. I never had the glasses up for 5 seconds and I seen this massive set of plates coming across the barrens. Like, how long was that? I had to signal to Dad here to go wake Caleb up so I could keep my eyes on him. So right in that trough above those rocks there's a huge bull. We're going to go after him, but it's a long ways away. As always, he wasn't up on the barrens for long. He had went down into that droke and laid down. Yeah, that far. So off we went, but we knew this one was going to be a long walk. On the way. Long way to go. Should be there in about 2 hours, hopefully. I love that little look that Caleb gives me when he heard me say to the camera that it was going to take us 2 hours to get there. But, like I said, we were going to give him a day he wouldn't forget. The problem is with this valley is you can never walk straight. There's always something that you have to go around. Sometimes you got to take a higher ridge, sometimes you got to take a lower drope. And in this case, you got to go around a big pond. And the moose was already 3 miles away, but we probably made it 4. Just for the simple fact that we had to go around this pond. Another issue with this valley is because it's down a little bit lower, obviously, you get these high areas of tuckamore that are like 7-8 feet tall and just brutal to push through. Because Dad and I know this valley so well, we actually didn't get into much tuckamore today. But if you don't know where you're going, you can get into patches of that stuff that is a mile long, and it is discouraging. Remember the patch of white rocks that we said the moose was just up over? Well, we made it. We knew we were in the right place, and now all we had to do was call him out. Now, for years, I've wanted to see a bull moose come out on that barren with that big mountain in the background and get a shot of it. So rather than stay with Dad, I moved up about 100 yards. And the goal was to try to get him to come out in the barrens, and I would be on the angle that not only could I get Dad and the moose in the video, but also this big background. After 30 minutes of calling and scraping and making all kinds of noise, nothing moved. And we began to second guess ourselves because from 3 miles away, was that the right landmark? Did we look at the right tree? Are we near the right rock pile? Maybe we were in the right spot, but for the 2 hours it took us to get there, maybe he got up and moved. No matter what it was, this wasn't working, so we had to change our plan. We began to sneak right through the drogue, and we didn't know if we were going to bump right into him, or if we'd get out across onto the next barren and see him in another place. We really didn't know what was going to happen, but we had to try something. Something just wasn't right, so Dad climbed a tree to have a look. He no sooner got up in the tree and the bull was right below him. Couldn't believe his eyes. All that scraping we were doing and he had never moved. Now I'm sorry this video gets a little crazy, but the problem was when Dad climbed the tree and seen the moose, of course the moose seen him as well. So that scared him, and now he was starting to run off. So we were scraping and calling and grunting and trying to do everything we could to rectify our mistake. Otherwise, we had just walked all that distance for absolutely nothing. It was the most discouraging moment of my life. But he was gone, and there was nothing we could do about it. As you can see here, I didn't even know I was videoing, but you can tell by my hands that I wasn't very happy. I don't think any of us were. We have walked all that distance for absolutely nothing.
Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying the video so far. It's an absolutely miserable day out here today. But I can guarantee you it's not near as miserable as what we felt after we drove that bull. All that distance of walking just to make one mistake and have him scared off. It was a long walk out there, but it was about to be twice as long going back with nothing to show for it. What a disheartening moment. That's actually why I had to make this little filler video, because I had no footage. I was so discouraged, so I just put my camera, I stuck it in my camera bag in my backpack, tucked it all away. I said, that's it, I'm not filming no more today. That's it, I'm done. And all that time while I was putting stuff away, Dad and Caleb had started out ahead of me a little ways. And once I started out through the drogue and got out towards the bear, and I could see Dad up in the bear and say, come on. I didn't know what he was talking about. But anyway, I rushed out, and I couldn't believe my eyes.
I've been really trying, baby, trying to hold back this feeling for so long. And if you feel like I feel, baby, then come on. Oh, come on. Woo. Let's get it on.
Now I guess Dad and Caleb had been enjoying the show a little too much, because they had done nothing for the last 2 or 3 minutes while I was getting there. And now I'm out frantically trying to get my camera, and as you can see they're on a bank. They're about to go down over the bank and be completely out of sight, and we might never ever see them again. I told Dad, I said, what are you waiting for? Like, put antlers on your head, grunt to them, do something, make them stop so I can get the camera out and maybe get close to them. I can't really blame them for being caught up in the moment. That was a pretty good view there, that bull right up on the wide open barren with that mountain in the background. Nonetheless meeting a cow. Like, that was an experience you don't get to see very many times in life. I really couldn't believe this worked, but as soon as Dad put the antlers on his head, the love song was over. As soon as he looked back and seen Dad coming across the barrens with antlers on his head, he was locked. He did not like the fact that another bull was coming to interfere with his sexy time, that's for sure. Now, I'm I'm using a lot of zoom here, but we're about 500 yards from this moose. We're nowhere close to him yet. And he's just right on the edge of the bank, so I still really had no faith that this was going to work, that he would stay there and just let us walk across the barrens right to him. We just kept getting closer and closer. Once I seen this was going to work, I started making a plan in my mind that as soon as he was really locked on Dad, I was going to sneak around to the left and get the shot that I was waiting for my entire life. At this point now, I had finally got separated from the boys. He was locked onto Dad so much coming across those barrens with the antlers on his head that I was able to catch a moment in time where he wasn't paying much attention to me and move off and get to where I wanted. And now I was actually closer to the moose than they were. I was so close to getting the shot I wanted. I just needed to get a little more to the left. The problem was that cow was right there. The bull was locked onto Dad and it was no trouble to beat him, but it's not easy to beat a cow. And I really had to wait and take my moments when she would put her head down to feed and belly crawl across the ground and just gain a yard or two at a time to try to get the angle that I wanted. In the meantime, off to the right, Dad was really starting to get this guy's attention. Just watch. He had been licking his lips pretty heavy, but now he started to sway his antlers. And that's when you know they're interested. We knew we finally had him on a string, and as long as we didn't make any mistakes, this should be really interesting. At this point, he wasn't going anywhere. He was so locked on, he just didn't care. As you can see here, Dad's still coming with the antlers up, but Caleb is standing right up tall as he can be, no cover whatsoever, and it just didn't matter. This moose was locked. I still needed to get a little more to the left to get the angle that I wanted. And he wasn't helping me any because, as you can see, he kept moving to the left. So every time I gained 5 yards, he'd walk a couple steps and I'd lose everything I gained. But patience always wins. I finally got over far enough that I just caught a glimpse of him with this mountain in the background. It was just enough. He was walking over to the left and I only got a split second there, but I was able to take a couple nice pictures out of that, and that's all I wanted. So from now on, I got what I wanted and I was completely satisfied. It seemed like at this point he had kind of figured out that we weren't the real deal and started to run off a little bit. But a couple grunts and he stopped right up again. And we had got all the pictures and photos that we wanted, but I mean, why not? We're all this way, we might as well take all we can get, right? Now I know you can't hear the grunting on the camera because I wasn't near Dad, but Dad had got him back on the string again and he was starting to get aggressive. At this point, Caleb branched off and came over by me, and Dad kept on going to see how close he could get to this thing. The bull was starting to rake the trees, and Dad was getting in pretty close, so it looked like this was going to be a good show. if you think it's starting to get crazy now, just you wait. The crazy part's coming up. Now keep in mind, we don't have a gun with us. The only thing I can shoot this moose with is my camera, and I don't think that would help very much if he charged them. Now, is that close enough? Nah, not really.
I got no gun to back you, buddy. That's all I can tell you. Picture of this phone. It's phone on.
Yeah, this seems like the perfect time to start trying to get him aggressive when you're about 10 feet away from him. Now, you're probably thinking that this is the crazy part, how close Dad is to this bull. But as much as I don't want to take anything away from it, this really isn't the crazy part. What you're going to see next absolutely blew our minds. Now at this point, Dad is done. He's had his fun, he's gotten as close as he wants to get, and we've got lots of pictures and videos. Everything is just perfect. But you still got to get out of there. Now normally what we've done in the past is a couple of things. One, we'll either speak to the moose in a human voice and they'll run off like crazy, or two, we'll circle upwind of them a little bit, let them smell, and they'll still run off like crazy. But there's this thing that we've been doing the last couple of years that is really cool, and that's what I want to show you. Rather than spooking the moose by voice or smell, what Dad is doing here is he's actually admitting defeat. See, about 90% of moose fights actually don't happen. They have an antler display, they circle each other, and one moose figures that the other one is bigger, and he doesn't want any part of it, so they won't even fight. And that's what Dad is doing here. He's admitting defeat, he's backing away slowly, he's basically telling that moose that, no, I'm good, you're the winner here, and we don't need to fight this out. We've had our antler display, and you look bigger, and I'm just going to back away.
So he keeps his horns up on his head, backs away slowly, and he's basically letting that moose believe that he's won the battle. Now, what does admitting defeat do? Well, the purpose of it is, when you admit defeat, you've let that bull know that you are no longer a threat to him. If you scare him with your voice, you're a threat. If you let him smell you, you're a threat. But if you admit defeat, you've just let him know that you're no longer a threat to him. Now, once that moose is no longer threatened by you, you just become a regular object. You have no meaning in the world to them. They just go back to their regular activities and carry on like nothing's ever happened. So for 2 solid hours, my dad and I and Caleb stood here in the middle of an open barren with absolutely no cover and just watched these animals from about 30 yards away just do their thing. After a while, we kind of got bored, so I figured I'd try to get out pretty close and take a selfie with them. Keep in mind, all 3 of us are just standing here in an open barren, in the wide open, no cover. I was actually starting to get his dandruff up a little bit again.
What a picture.
So I finally got out and got my selfie with him. And since he was feeling so photogenic today, Caleb decided he'd come out and give it a try.
Not too fast, Caleb.
At this point, it's starting to get a little unbelievable. Like, there was 3 of us in the wide open on the barrens, no cover, in plain sight, 30-40 yards away from this moose, and he just didn't care. We were walking up to him, taking selfies, doing whatever we wanted to do. Now, I wouldn't say he was completely comfortable just yet. He's kind of just standing there keeping an eye on us. Not really alarmed, but definitely not comfortable. But that was about to change right soon. Once everybody got their selfies taken, we decided we'd make ourselves comfortable and just watch them for a little while. We had a couple hours before we had to leave to go out, so why not? He was starting to get pretty comfortable, and the cow was starting to feed a little bit. And what a beautiful background we had. Just gorgeous. This is the part I would have never seen coming in a million years. This bull got so comfortable with us, even though we were in the wide open 30 yards away. He just laid right down in the middle of that barren and had himself a good old snooze. While he was having a good snooze, we were having a good lunch. But after about an hour or so, he decided it was time to wake back up again. Looked right over at us. As comfortable as he was, he knew where we were. He wasn't going to leave us unsupervised for too long, I guess. Again, just look at that backdrop. What a beautiful picture. I could have watched them all day, but unfortunately it was time to go. We had a 2.5-hour walk out. But before we left, I wanted to try some things with this bull, just for future knowledge. I mean, we had all the pictures and experiences that we want, but
now I wanted to try some things with him to just see what reaction I would get for future reference, I guess. At first he wasn't real interested in me, but eventually after a couple grunts I got his attention back again and tried to get up as close as I could one last time. I was being a little more aggressive towards him this time. We had got all of our pictures and wasn't really worried if we scared him off now because it was time to go anyway. But again, I just wanted to try some stuff, like this. Yeah, that didn't work so well. I thought for sure if I lunged at him he'd run away. Not likely. As soon as I lunged at him, he just turned right back at me. Kind of scared me a little bit, to be honest.
You get bad fright if he comes after him. Speak to him. Speak to him. Tell him to go. Speak to him.
He just wouldn't go. You couldn't scare him off if you wanted to. So we left and got out of there. And about a half an hour later, we got up on top of the ridge where we could look back and see where we were from before. And he was still there. So one last time, we said goodbye to our friend and goodbye to this beautiful view. And we headed out. See you next year. How's she going?
Oh, it's just the very best.
I think we've walked 2 miles and we haven't went towards home yet. Gotta go.
My groin hurts. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Is that all?
yeah. Carrying around a heavy load.
It's unfortunate, but I only get to see this place once a year. Bye-bye. What a day today. Started out up on the look-off. There's a little hole about a half a kilometer over the ridge that I always go check. One time we seen a bull in it. It's a 20-point bull, and of course every time I go now I gotta go check, but I never ever see one there anymore. Went out over the bank today and checked in there. There was 9. And one big bull. Turned out to be 19 points. So Caleb and I called him up pretty close, but the wind was well, it was dead and it was like swirling. So when he got within 50 feet, he got a scent, and couldn't get a real good picture because he never did come as close as I wanted. So we went back and got dead. And we went back across, found him again, and got, I don't know, within 50 yards of him. There's in some thick stuff. And got a few pictures of his antlers, but that was about it. So then, walked out to the next ridge, had a look across the valley, out across Doctor's Gulch, and seen a monster slab-bore bull out there. I don't know. 3-4 miles out, but I don't know, 6 kilometers. The way we had to walk kind of around, and got down on him, and we must have spent 2 hours playing around with him. All 3 of us actually got to get up close with him. You'll see the pictures later, but yeah, it was insane. Just a pretty unique experience. I never spent that much time up close to a bull like that. Just settled right down and
kind of just accepted us. On the way home, which we're on the way home now, the only thing that was missing was a big stag caribou. I was telling Dad, it's the only thing we're missing today is a big caribou. And we were walking up over a bank. We literally got to the top not 30 seconds after I said it. Here was a big stag caribou. So I snapped a couple pictures of him, and I mean, day complete. Unbelievable. It was somewhere around 20 kilometers logged today, walking. Big day. That's what we come for, though. Good spot.
Like I just said in the video, Dad and I were talking on the way out about how good the day was. And I told him, I said, the only way this day could be perfect is if we seen a big stag caribou on the way out. While I said that, we were climbing a bank, and as soon as we topped the bank, not 30 seconds later, this big stag caribou was waiting at the top for us. You couldn't have drew it up any more perfect than that. The only unfortunate part was that we were running out of daylight, so we didn't really have much time to stop and play with them. We had a couple nice pictures, and we were on our way again.
I'll be sitting on the back like a laugh.
Boys, I don't know how I expect to.
Get that thing out.
I don't know how I expect to get out before dark. Keep stopping for breaks.
Better to walk in the shade.
Good enough.
It's a long walk, Caleb. You gonna get a head start? Yeah.
Headed home. Couple miles to go yet, though. Gotta get to the top of that bank there. That big rock up there. That's where we looked off from this morning. Finally made her back.
Internal combustion. I love it.
My phone battery died right here, and that was the last video I got of the day. We made it out by dark, we stayed at the hotel, and then the next day we drove down to my old hometown in Middle Arm. Now, it's about a 5-hour drive from where we were hunting, but it's hard to go back to Newfoundland without going home. My dad also had a bear license for this area, so we were going to go in on what's called the hummocks and just have a look and see what we could see. If we found a bear, good. If not, we didn't really care. Our trip was made now, so anything else after that was just bonus points. It's a pretty steep, hard climb to get to the top of the hummocks. But when you get to the top, man, what a view. You ever hear the song Tequila Makes Her Clothes Fall Off? Well, so does the hummocks. It always seems when you get to the top of that one, you've got a lot less layers on than what you started with. Like I figured would happen, today turned out to be more about lunching than doing anything else. It was just nice to be up there though, see those views again, and just reminisce on the old days, I guess. While we were sitting there having a lunch, a bear came out on the next hill over. He was climbing up the side of the cliff. I couldn't get a great picture because the smoke was blowing right in front of me. Now we did try to go after him, but like you see the direction of the smoke, the wind was from us to him, so we knew we didn't have much of a chance. But we tried anyway. We never did get the bear, but what a great day to end the trip. Roamed around the old stomping grounds, spent some time with some old friends, had a lot of good laughs. Hey, that's what it's all about.
Rick, flies down.
It was truly a trip to remember.